The following is a presentation of the Nerd Complex Podcast Network.
You are listening to Audio Suplex Live.
I love that song. It's one of my favorites. Welcome everybody to episode, 28 of Audio Suplex Live. We're going to be switching up the format a little bit here this week. I am, of course, Travis Moore. Typically, I would be accompanied by my co-host and tag team partner, the Kevin Nash to my Scott Hall, or depending on how you look at it, the Vincent to my Scott Norton, heel Corey. But he has come down with a case of the late night closings and could not be with us today. So, without any further ado, if you're watching us on YouTube, you've probably already seen this. We are joined today by James. James is from one of our sister shows here at the Nerd Complex Network, Chick Flick Picks. James, how are you?
I'm doing great. Good to be here.
Fantastic, man. Tell us a little bit about Chick Flick Picks for those who listen to our show and are like, what the hell is Chick Flick Picks?
So, have you ever had to watch a movie with your woman that you really didn't really want to see, but you're doing it because she's your woman or hopes to be your woman, and you want to get a little play?
Absolutely. I think we've all been there.
Exactly. That's what Chick Flick Picks is. We're going to go over staples of the Chick Flick format.
Okay.
Review them and tell them if you're going to survive the experience.
So it's kind of like a how-to guide for guys of like, okay, so these are movies that you will probably have to encounter at some point in your relationship. Here's how you're going to fare. Kinda.
I mean, there's a lot of straight synopsis of the movie with both me and my co-host Peapod.
Good friend of the show, of course.
Yes, covering whether the movie's good, the things we liked about the movie. Just listen to our first episode where we absolutely savage You've Got Mail. Just absolutely.
I actually did listen to that one. I love that episode. Well, you guys just did a two-parter on
Love Actually,
which I've actually never watched, but I've heard it's a really decent movie. Like I've heard it's like a good watch.
It is. It's a movie that initially I didn't think too much of, but upon reviewing it for the show, I realized that it was better than what it was when I initially watched it.
Have you had any other like surprising revelations since starting the show that like, wow, I actually didn't think I would like this movie, and then you end up like
Under the Tuscan Sun is a pretty darn good film.
Really?
I'm not even joking.
Really?
One, it's got Diane Lane, who's been hot since she was 19, and she's in her almost like in her 50s now.
Yeah.
So, I first saw Diane Lane in Streets of Fire when she was 18 years old, and she was hot then. But that was a surprisingly good movie. We did. Whether or not you can call an actual chick flick or not, we also reviewed Annie Hall, which is one of my personal favorite movies, being a Jew from New York. Pod liked parts of it, didn't like other parts of it, but overall we both agreed it was a good film.
Right.
What were the other ones that
you guys just recorded another episode. It's not out yet. But
We just recorded last week. It should be out either sometime this week or next weekend, where we watched an obscure Christopher Walken romantic comedy.
That's actually my favorite subgenre of film. It's obscure Christopher Walken
romantic comedies,
rom-coms,
and called A Business Affair, which is Christopher Walken, Jonathan Pryce, excellent British
really
actor. Yes, and Carol Bouquet, who played Melina in For Your Eyes Only,
really,
the Bond film. In fact, that's a James Bond double threat because that's got her and Jonathan Pryce, who played a Bond villain.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And it was for that one, we, as opposed to me and Pod watching it separately and taking notes and then coming to record the show, we watched the show at Joe Couché's house with Joe, our producer.
Our wonderful studio here.
And then recorded it immediately afterwards, so everything was fresh. The problem was that the movie is so bad. So bad. There were at least two times where Pod, like, shouting out loud, like, stop the movie, I can't take it.
So I legitimately like I'm always excited to hear like a new episode from you guys. I'm legitimately excited because when the movie's bad, that's when the episode is going to be good.
Oh yeah, oh man. And it's funny because I watched the trailer and it's just like, of course it has all these rave reviews and it's just like, if you've ever really wanted to see Christopher Walken with slick back black dyed hair, trying to be Sicilian,
go on.
This is the movie for you.
Go on. That's actually sign me up.
So just the episode should drop hopefully this week or next week, and like I said, give it a listen. I think you'll get a chuckle or two.
Excellent.
That reminds me, just real quick, as I said before we dive into the wrestling this week, Joe, how's the progress on us trying to interview Dave Chappelle?
Put me on the spot here.
Sorry.
So Joe's noted chick flick actor and rom-com staple and stalwart Dave Chappelle.
So yeah, I contacted his agent, or his media person, and she declined the interview.
Oh,
unreal.
Bummer.
At this time, so I'll keep trying.
Obviously, Dave is a busy guy. The reason why we wanted Dave Chappelle is because he was in You've Got Mail, and we think it would be interesting to interview Dave Chappelle and just talk about his experience on You Got Mail.
A man who has literally done so many things in his career, had his own syndicated television show, multi comedy specials, and been the star of many,
We want to get Dave Chappelle and ask him, what's Tom Hanks really like?
Which is, I'm sure, a perspective that like only Dave Chappelle can like bring something.
Yeah,
to.
you know.
Oh my god, I would pay good money to see you guys literally just interview Dave Chappelle just for that. That'd be super funny. So, Joe, how are you doing this week, man? You doing pretty good?
Yeah, doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you excited now that the G1 Climax tournament is over?
Oh yeah, totally.
Thrilled. Joe's a huge fan of Japanese professional wrestling. So we asked James here today to come onto the show because he's a fan of both Japanese pro wrestling, well, pro wrestling in general. But
Yes.
One of the things you had actually reached out to me is because you're a fan of female pro wrestling as well.
Huge fan of women's wrestling.
Yeah, and with the upcoming Mae Young Classic, I figured what better way to get us all educated and ready to go for the Mae Young Classic and to kind of like introduce ourselves to some of the competitors than to have somebody who has been following their career in both like the indies and stuff like that. So this episode's going to be kind of like a double whammy. We're going to be basically recapping the G1 and kind of like, you know, tying a nice little bow on that and calling it a day on that because that just wrapped up at 5:00 this morning.
Yeah, New Japan.
Yeah, thank God. And then we're going to be going into the Mae Young Classic a little bit and kind of, you know, breaking that down. And we're not going to go into brackets because WWE hasn't formally announced them yet. The spoilers are out there if you guys want to see them.
But we're not going to spoil it for you because we're not dicks.
No, we're dicks.
Well, I mean, we're dicks, but we're not that kind of dick.
Yeah, we're a different breed of dick. So, but
you
yeah.
may not have watched the G1 final, but we're going to tell you who won because, I mean, it's news.
He's very tranquilo. Muy tranquilo, if you will. So yeah, so let's kind of get into it. So the G1 27 just wrapped up. The final this morning was,
I feel really old when you put the number on it.
The G1 27, James.
Wow.
The 27th, which I think there's been more than that, but like it's the 27th since they started the proper numbering.
Let me think here. I started really getting heavy into Japanese wrestling in '95, so that means I started with like G1 number 6. So,
good Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm old.
Is that how the OGs feel when they talk about like, yo, I was there for Mania 3 when...
Well, let me work you down. The first time I saw Japanese wrestlers was, I grew up in New York. I used to go to the monthly garden shows at MSG all the time for the WWF. And I went to a show in the spring, summer of '86. And they brought in from Japan Dump Matsumoto and Bull Nakano.
Really?
And the Crush Girls. They didn't wrestle each other. They wrestled two American female teams. And that blew my mind.
Because they were probably just... Well, they were light years better than anybody out at the time anyway.
Dump Matsumoto is just a sight to behold. She's possibly the greatest heel in the history of pro wrestling.
Fantastic.
But it's just like, oh my God, you know, I need to see Japanese wrestling. And luckily for me, there was this thing called the Sunshine Network on my cable provider. Mm-hmm. And at the end of '86 and throughout '87... they started airing episodes of All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling on their show, and they had this commentator who was not an American pro wrestling fan at all. He was more interested in the cultural aspect of women's wrestling in Japan. But I mean, I got to see these matches, and I was blown away, and I became obsessed with trying to watch Japanese wrestling. And then tape trading became a thing in the 90s.
Yes, sir. I was never into like the Japanese tape trading. I was much more into like the, and I'm talking like the late 90s, early aughts. I was more into like the trading CZW tapes and ROH and IWA Mid-South and stuff like that.
I get tastes throughout the late 80s and early 90s. I get tastes of certain Japanese guys because WCW had a working relationship with both All Japan and New Japan.
Yeah, that's where they brought in Chono to the NWO and.
Even before that, because they did the NWA Tag Title Tournament that one year, and they had, what was it? It was Iizuka and Hashimoto, I think?
Well,
Hiroshi Hase.
We just did an episode where we did a retro review of Great American Bash 89.
The Muta Sting match?
Yeah.
Great match.
Fantastic match.
That's one of my favorite pay-per-views.
You know, Meltzer only gave that like a 3.5 stars.
It's Meltzer.
But he gave the main event like 4 stars with Terry Funk and Ric Flair.
Because that's Terry Funk and Ric Flair. I can back him on that.
I don't know. Oh no. That wasn't the egregious one. The one that really pissed us off because I thought Sting Muta was the best match on that card. But he gave Lex Luger and who did Lex Luger face on that card?
Steamboat.
He gave that like 4 stars.
It deserved it. Up to that point, that was Luger's best match.
That's saying a lot.
Up to that point, no, because Luger was still kind of. I mean, he'd been wrestling since '86 at that point, and he still hadn't figured it out. And so, if you're gonna
don't know if he has
it, no, trust me. Okay. Understand about that match. If you're going to have a good match with someone, if you need someone to make you look good and help you figure it out,
Steamboat's definitely
you put him in with Ricky Steamboat.
Yeah, Steamboat's definitely the guy that you want to put him in there with.
And then after that match, because Steamboat left after that match over pay dispute. After that match, it became Luger as U.S. champ had just a string of really great matches.
I have to go back and watch this now.
Watch the Halloween Havoc match between him and Brian Pillman.
Really?
Oh, my God, that's a good match. Then the rematch they had at the Clash. He had a very underrated match at Starrcade that year against Muta, where he got misted by Muta and sold it like he got shot in the face with buckshot. It's the best selling of Muta mist I've ever seen. Usually people are like, oh, my eyes.
Awesome.
No, Luger fucking fell on his back. It was like, oh! It was fantastic. And then he had his feud with Stan Hansen.
That I would be interested in seeing.
Oh, it's worth it just for the Stan Hansen promos because he's always got this giant wad of chew in his mouth. It's disgusting.
Oh my God, it's so crazy to me how different things are now and then that goes across so many genres.
When I think about wrestlers that when I first saw them blew my mind, the first 2 that come to mind are Randy Savage and then the Great Muta. Yeah, and Muta more than anyone made me want to watch more Japanese wrestling.
Muta's just was for his time he was absolutely phenomenal.
Forget the fact that, Keiji Muto now has to have, WD-40 applied to his knee joints twice a year. I mean, I love Keiji Muto. I don't care if he's old and broken down now. The man's got such wicked charisma. It's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, it's insane. Absolutely insane.
I can't think of a guy who did more to reinvent himself than Keiji Muto did.
This is true. So let's get back to this year's G1. Now that we are on the 27th iteration of the G1 tournament.
G1.
So to kind of we'll go over the blocks. We had Block A had Bad Luck Fale, Goto, Ibushi, Ishii, Makabe, Nagata in his final G1. Zack Sabre Jr., Naito, Tanahashi, and Yoshihashi. Mm-hmm. Block B was Elgin, Evil, Kojima, Okada, Omega, Juice Robinson, Sonata, Minoru Suzuki, Tamatanga, and Yano. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was a really good, that
was a very strong block. I was disappointed.
B block was incredibly strong.
I was really disappointed in the fact that they made this hype about it being Nagata's last G1, and they didn't run him as a contender.
Yeah, no, he really, you kind of knew like right from the onset that he wasn't going to be.
It's a real. I felt like that he deserved a few wins.
Right,
you know?
right. He only picked up
One.
one win, and it was over Zack Sabre Jr. Congratulations, Zack Sabre Jr. with that honor.
Nagata is still one of the top workers in the company.
Yeah.
I mean,
Still kind of, for somebody like me who's now freshly getting into New Japan. So this is going to be a fun dynamic going through this because I'm coming to this from very fresh eyes, like having a very passing knowledge of Japanese wrestling. Like I know your Mudas and your I'm blanking right now. Anyway, Chonos, yeah, knowing like your pillars and stuff like that, but not really necessarily knowing the delicate ins and outs. And then somebody like you who is very well versed in it. This is going to be a fun dynamic. But to me, he still, as somebody coming into it fresh, kind of represents a little bit of like that old guard.
He is. At this point, he is the old guard. He is your gatekeeper, basically. I mean, Nagata started back in the mid-'90s. He was in the Young Lion tournament in either 94 or 95. He lost in the finals to the guy who would go on. I always forget the dude's name, who became Kendo Kashin.
Okay.
And then they did what they used to do in New Japan back in the old days. They sent him on a learning excursion to America,
yeah.
and that's where he got his exposure here in WCW. And I loved Yuji Nagata in WCW. He was fun. He always
when was he in WCW?
97, 98.
See,
maybe
I feel like I would have
99.
had some exposure to him at
They
that
did,
point.
they did
because
what they did with every Japanese person that came into WCW at that point.
threw him on WCW Saturday night and
had him managed by Sonny Ono.
Oh, of course. So somewhere there's probably a selfie of him and Ultimo Dragon together with Sonny Ono with the disposable camera.
More than likely, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
man, how did I miss out on this? I have to go back and watch.
They had him as a perennial challenger to the TV title without winning the TV title.
Of course. Well, because that title is prestigious and only reserved for the highest caliber athletes like Disco Inferno.
There's a Holy Grail match from that period, either from Saturday Night or Nitro, that was Regal versus Yuji Nagata. That
I feel like that's
for
probably,
a 5-minute match was incredible.
I feel like that's probably one of the best 5-minute matches that nobody ever saw.
It's like the Barry Houston Fit Finlay match. For those who don't know, Barry Houston was a perennial jobber on or enhancement talent on the WCW shows, who they always put in with these great workers. And Barry Houston had these amazing matches with them. There's one with him and Jushin Liger and one with him and Fit Finlay. And you watch this and like, wow, Barry Houston's really good.
Yeah. I have to check out some of his stuff because that's crazy to me because if you look at WCW's roster back then, they had so many good guys on the roster.
If you want to know a good resource for picking out matches from Japan and the U.S., check out the Death Valley Driver video reviews number 100, where they go over their top 100 matches. I've been a member of the Death Valley Driver board for too long. Like the board debuted, I think, in 99. I've been a member since day one. Still going. But the actual video reviews, they give really interesting analysis. They cover the original Muda Blade job. They cover
the advent of the
one of their
scale.
One of their favorite matches is from the 98 G1 between Tenryu and Hashimoto, where the whole match is just Tenryu and Hashimoto stiffing each other for like 15 minutes.
Fantastic. And you thought Minoru Suzuki was
as the beginning of the review states, Hashimoto and Tenryu chop each other till one of them wets themselves.
Oh, fantastic!
Check out the Death Valley Driver board. I think you'll get. I'll send you a link to that and another place where you can get matches.
Excellent. Yeah, so I need to brush up on my older Japanese wrestling and my older I love WCW, and like my memories of it are always of like the bigger stuff. Like I'll always remember Sting Hogan from Starrcade '97 and stuff like that. As much as I would like to forget it, and some of the bigger spots like that. But
I can't think of a pro wrestling organization that was so good at hyping up their main events for their big shows and those matches not delivered.
Well, we did another retro review for, I want to say it was Uncensored 96.
Oh boy.
And they did, so that was a perfect.
Wasn't that the
that was the Hogan Savage cage match main event.
Oh.
Yeah. So but here's the thing. They did such a great job like hyping up the main event. And our review was literally this. The undercard, fantastic. The main event was like somebody pooped in your cereal.
The best way to describe the WWF WCW Monday Night Wars is you watch the opening of Nitro.
Opening of Nitro and watch the main event of Raw.
Exactly. And then you watch the in-between. It's the undercard of Raw is garbage. Watch the main event. Watch the undercard on Nitro instead.
Because at that point,
you
WCW
had the cruiserweights, and the TV title was always hot.
The TV title was incredibly hot.
So
going off of our final standings for Block A, we had Tetsuya Naito picking up the win of Block A with 14 points. Tanahashi coming in right behind him with 12. Kenny Omega winning Block B. Kazuchika Okada coming in at second place on that with 13 points. I think they did a really good job this year of using the G1 to tell a lot of really good stories.
Yes, they did.
First and foremost, Yano throughout the entire tournament has been pure entertainment. His match with Kenny Omega, fantastic.
There's I love Toru Yano.
He's fantastic.
Like as a wrestler, he's garbage. But when he knows how to do what he does, do it well, and get a laugh out of you, he's their main comedy guy, and it pays off for him.
Yeah. For the uninitiated, so if you haven't, because I'm assuming we have a lot of people who are watching this who are still not really into New Japan. I'm sure you guys have either watched Omega Okada or you've heard like rumblings of what's going on with it. Generally speaking, the presentation of New Japan is a very kind of like straightforward, very non-nonsense kind of.
It's a hard-hitting style.
It's the literal advent of what we know in WWE now as strong style. But
understand, okay, New Japan was founded by Antonio Inoki.
Yes,
Inoki built his rep as mixing pro wrestling and MMA,
kind of like a shoot, kind of
true. The very first big league they did this thing called the World League when New Japan launched, and they brought in Andre the Giant, they brought in Karl Gotch, and Inoki was one of the few. If I remember right, the match doesn't exist on tape between him and Gotch.
Yeah.
But it was such a big deal that Inoki laid down for Gotch.
Right.
That's still talked about to this day.
You're talking about two of like the biggest pillars in professional wrestling, like in the pantheon.
And Gotch was not only a great pro wrestler, he was a shooter.
Yeah, absolutely. As many were back in those days.
There was a rivalry between him and Luthez that never culminated in a match.
Always culminate in a fight.
It was always politics.
Yeah.
And then after the World League, which started I think in '74, New Japan went on. They always brought in the original formula was they would bring in big American wrestlers to feud with Inoki.
Hogan at one point.
Hogan, Hansen, Andre, all those guys. Murdoch and Adonis.
But that was always kind of like the thing with New Japan for many, many years is you would get these guys who were big in the States that would end up going over there, at various points of their careers. And even after like Inoki was kind of like out of the picture, you had like a guy like Scott Norton went over there and made a really good name for himself. And even like the Steiners went over. They love their Hasses, by the way. The
Steiner brothers versus Hase and Kensuke Sasaki is a 5-star match that won the Observer Match of the Year one year. Oh man, it's a great match. But the formula with Inoki was that they always had to protect Inoki and try to protect the Americans he wrestled against. So you didn't get a lot of clean finishes. And then Inoki started his I'm the ambassador to MMA and pro wrestling, and then in the 90s, the next generation was coming in, where it got away from Inoki being the focus to more Tatsunami Fujinami being the focus. That was Inoki's quote unquote disciple, and then. But he was still part of the old guard, and they focused on 3 guys in the upcoming class, and those 3 guys were Shinya Hashimoto, Masahiro Chono, and Keiji Muto.
Yeah, and those became like the big
they were known as the 3 Musketeers.
Yes.
There's a 4th guy, Hiroshi Hase, who is like the patron saint of great workers who never held a title. Or singles title. He's like the D'Artagnan to their Aramis. And so for so in the 90s, they created the G1 Climax,
Yes.
which is the tournament that just completed.
Yes.
And the very first G1 Climax was won by Masahiro Chono. The final was him versus Keiji Muto in a match that was so good, held at the Nippon Budokan. When you go to the Nippon Budokan, or at least back in those days, it was you didn't have a cushion on the seat there because they're old seats. It's a sumo hall.
Yeah.
You would pay for a cushion. The match was so good, the fans were throwing the cushions into the ring afterwards.
Which is insane because Japanese fans are typically regarded as being a little bit more reserved, a little bit.
It's the equivalent of in Mexico. If they start throwing coins in the ring after your match, that means you had an amazing match.
Right. That's fantastic.
And like Chono won like the first 3 G1s.
Right. But basically, since then, like that kind of like set forward the style of what New Japan is. It's a very kind of like
You look forward to 2 things every year in New Japan.
the G1.
First, the Tokyo Dome. That
Yeah, of course.
kicks off the new year. It wraps up the storylines from the previous year.
Which wonderfully for me lands on my birthday every year. So,
1-4. Oh,
yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
And so that wraps up the storylines from the previous year, and then everything's building to the G1.
Yes.
Yeah, you have your title matches in between.
Well, because a lot of your guys don't really, because the way that New Japan formats their matches and their cards, you don't get a lot of one-on-one matches throughout the year.
No,
you have a lot of mixed man tags and a lot of multi-man tags. So the G1 is one of the very few times a year that you get a lot of these guys getting just true one-on-one matches here.
I mean, the formula for most New Japan tours is you announce at the beginning of the tour what the IWGP title match is going to be at the end of the tour.
Right, and that'll
and
end
then
up with the
tease
big
throughout the
show.
tour by having tag matches between the guys that are going to be in that match.
Yeah.
And it's a great formula. It's that way you build interest, and then people come to the big show.
And there's a lot of emphasis on tag team wrestling there too, because they have literally 3 tag team championships there. You have the junior heavyweight tag team titles, you have the heavyweight tag team titles, and then now you also have the never openweight 6-man tags. Which is good because like the way New Japan's booked
I
now,
treat the never 6-man tag titles like I treated the U30 title. It doesn't mean anything.
I kind of like I like the idea of there being a 3-man title because look at the way New Japan is now though. It's all faction based. If you're in New Japan now,
technically it always has been.
Yeah.
But basically, New Japan used to be straight treated as sport. Back in 2007, there was a shakeup in management. They kicked out Riki Choshu as booker and replaced him with Jado and Geto.
Yes.
Jado and Geto, fun tag team, junior heavyweights, but they were mainly known for working in FMW, which was the king of all garbage feds. Garbage meaning it's a deathmatch fed.
Yeah.
It was where Onita made his name. It's where it's.
If you ever seen like a thing on like barbed wire piranha, it's probably FMW.
Yeah. In fact, one of the Hallmark guys from FMW recently passed away, Mr. Pogo.
Yeah.
Mr. Pogo. Mr. Pogo was usually sitting with Atsushi Onita, who was the main draw, and Mr. Pogo's moveset involved him mainly carving up Onita with a sickle.
So let's bring it back to this year's G1 a little bit.
Yes.
So we end up having,
but because Jado Geto took over, more of a sports entertainment vibe
kind of snuck its way in a little bit. So you have a little bit more of an.
You have this thing where the winner of the
too.
G1 has the briefcase that that guarantees them a shot at the IWGP title at the Tokyo Dome.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Almost kind of like a Money in the Bank.
There's a lot more outside the ring brawling.
Yes.
Than there used to be.
And you see that a lot with the advent of like the Bullet Club and stuff like that. They kind of also helped. I think they were like the catalyst for bringing in more of that Western style booking and storytelling into the product.
They were really the first major in a long time, the first major gaijin heel faction.
Well, then that's the thing. Like with so now there's obviously like
you had the NWO Japan, but it was still mostly Japanese guys, and every now and then
Scott Norton,
Scott Norton, but he was more considered a Japanese guy anyway.
Yeah.
But every now and then,
when Bullet Club started, it was a entirely gaijin faction because it was Devitt, it was Machine Gun.
Yep.
Who else was in it at the onset?
It was
Fale.
Anderson. I think the only Wait.
They didn't get a Japanese member until Takahashi joined.
No, wait. I thought Izuka
I don't think
defected
so.
from Chaos, and then joined Suzuki Gun later. That's another story. I can't remember. At this point.
So who's your current favorite faction out of all the factions in New Japan? I'm a big LIJ guy. I love Los Ingobernables. It starts with Naito, but like,
I'm always gonna be a home army guy.
yeah.
I'll always root for Team New Japan. But I mean, if you want your charismatic guys, you go with either Chaos or Bullet Club or. I mean, in the long run, I think I love all the guys in Chaos, so I'll go with Chaos.
Okay.
Because I love Okada to death.
Okada's fantastic.
I wish Sony hadn't pulled down the Japanese music video for Happy.
Yes, he's in it. He and
him and Nakamura.
Shinsuke's in it. Yeah,
but they pulled it down, and it was a legit music video.
There's a lot of hilarious gifs that make their way around Twitter of Shinsuke Nakamura dancing. And for those who don't know, those are actually from the Japanese version of Happy by Pharrell.
Mm-hmm.
So this is G1. We come down to a final of Kenny Omega, who has to beat Kazuchika Okada in the Block B finals to get to the final of the G1. So this is now...
He has to win. It can't be a draw.
Can't be a draw.
Get pinned. Otherwise, Okada
they
goes...
booked that brilliantly.
Yeah. I mean, because if Okada's won the G1 before, if I remember right. Or he may not have. I can't remember.
I don't think he has.
That'd be something if he hasn't. That could be his next major...
I'm fact-checking. So. So Omega having to go over Okada in the
that was
final.
a big deal. If you recall, they had the Tokyo Dome match, which some people say is the best match ever. I'm like, eh.
Kazuchika Okada last won the G1 in 2014.
So because everyone who was in the Final Four is a former winner. I think that was my main complaint.
Okada's a two-time winner actually. He won in 2012 and then also once again in 2014.
A sitting IWGP champion hasn't won the G1 since Kensuke Sasaki, I want to say.
You're probably right.
And that was like
2000?
Yeah, in there.
So,
yeah, 2000, because in 2001, Nagata won it.
Yep. So that's my big thing. So let's talk about Block B real quick. So Omega has to beat Okada to get into the final. Mm-hmm. They build it up perfectly. So Okada goes on this tear and just racks up points throughout the entirety of the tournament. So for those,
he's the most dominant IWGP champion in the tournament in like 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly think that, and this is also with the caveat of saying that, I'm not as experienced with older New Japan stuff as a lot of people like yourself. I think he might go down as one of the best, if not the best, IWGP champion.
He just might.
He's just fantastic. He's
a guy who
every match he has.
He debuted with the company. And then
left for a bit,
went to TNA, came back, re-debuted, and had the biggest disaster of a re-debut.
Went to TNA as the Green Hornet's sidekick, which is hilarious. It was super funny. Is like you see all these people bringing up like him and Naito, especially because they were just absolutely terrible in TNA.
But then re-debuted in the opening match at the Tokyo Dome, and it was the worst re-debut for a returning wrestler I've ever seen. He won with the original version of the Rainmaker, which didn't look good. It was more like a jumping neckbreaker type thing. It didn't look good. But then at the end of that Tokyo Dome show, he came out and challenged Tanahashi for the title. Mm-hmm. And then won the title on his first challenge.
So, and Tanahashi, for the uninitiated, is basically...
was the ace.
He is...
And some people, he still is.
He's Japanese John Cena, for all intents and purposes.
That's not incorrect. It's like this. Tanahashi is probably one of the 5 best big match wrestlers you're ever going to find.
Absolutely.
In that regard, he's like John Cena. You can hate John Cena all you want. You can't say he doesn't bring it for a big match.
Well, and that's the thing with Tanahashi, though, and I think the comparison also comes from the fact that he carried the company on his back for that whole duration of time, and it's very reminiscent to me of John Cena for like the late aughts, like like starting in circa like 2007 to like maybe about 2014. I think WWE was in a really weird spot where it wasn't the same product that it was the previous generation. And John Cena was really the guy towing the line. Like, he was the guy carrying the company. And that reminds me of Tanahashi on so many levels.
Tanahashi is a guy who, if the old corporate culture in Japan were still around, never would have got
Never
the belt.
would have been in that position.
In his early days, he was involved in a sex scandal where he got stabbed by his lover, who worked for the network. Something like that used to be in Japanese culture. Something like that happened. You're not.
Yeah,
you're not moving up.
No.
But he had such incredible charisma. Then he had the setback of they had built up to a match between him and Brock Lesnar for the IWGP title. Lesnar was the champion.
Which I love Lesnar in New Japan, by the way, because he wore the red tights, which is absolutely a fantastic look for Brock Lesnar.
And then the day before the match was supposed to happen, Lesnar says he's not doing it. He's done. And so the entire card for that show got scrapped, and they did a one-night tournament, which Tanahashi won. And he's gone on to have 5 or 6 title reigns as IWGP champion. He's the guy that bridges the really dark period of New Japan,
like the early 2000s
to the modern period.
Yeah.
Because what happened was that because Antonio Inoki couldn't keep his mitts off the booking in some regard to New Japan Pro Wrestling, kept bringing shoot fighters in and poaching guys from New Japan to show up on these New Year's Eve MMA competitions, and his wrestlers would get smoked. Yuji Nagata got killed by Mirko in a match on New Year's Eve, and it kind of damaged his reputation. It pretty much sabotaged his first IWGP title reign. And so it just came to a point where people were losing interest, and it had a lot to do with the booking, because if something would get started as a program, if any momentum it would get killed, because Inoki could be like, oh no, I want to push Fujita as
and because he would have his own agenda. He would have
and finally the board ousted Inoki.
Yeah, because basically he wasn't progressing anything. He wasn't,
There was a period where Masahiro Chono was the booker, and Masahiro Chono is a very old style booker.
Right.
I don't know if you know this. He's actually American.
Really?
He was born in Seattle.
Actually, yeah, I did know that, actually, because they had made a reference to the fact that no non-Japanese had won the G1 until Kenny Omega, but that's actually with the caveat of saying that, well, technically, Chono was born in Seattle.
Actually, one of the competitors in the Mae Young Classic is his stepdaughter.
Who's that?
Jazzy Gabert.
That's actually a good segue.
So,
are we going to take this? Are we going to take that segue?
Let's wrap up the G1 analysis. But Chono booked for a while, and then they brought back Riki Choshu to book. He booked during their hot period in the 90s, and it wasn't clicking.
That's like around circa 93, 94, 95.
During the strong style period when you had Muto Chono, and Hase and all those guys, but they brought Riki Choshu back into the fold around, I want to say 2004, but the magic wasn't there anymore. All the old guys from the hot period were all old and broken down now. Keiji Muto took a bunch of guys and bought All Japan, which was the rival promotion. They were trying to build stars with Tanahashi and Nakamura, but things kind of got sidetracked with Nakamura because they put the title on them way too early. They spent a year building to Hiroshi Tenzan winning the IWGP title, and then sabotaged him because the new owner didn't like him.
Yeah.
And so they put the title on Nakamura, and
he wasn't ready for it.
He wasn't ready for it at the time. But so after they got rid of Choshu, Tanahashi's established, Nakamura's established. You've got all these other great guys that are coming up. So they get rid of Choshu, and the people who get the job are a junior heavyweight tag team.
Yeah.
Who are known for working death matches or street fights in Jado and Gedo.
Yeah.
since they worked FMW, they knew a little bit more sports entertainment, and they
were
jazzed it up.
They were able to kind of
And
like
it's paid off for New Japan because
look at
they started growing the product again.
Look where we're at now. We're at a time where New Japan is able to run shows in the United States. They have a United States Championship. Like, they are making an actual foothold in American wrestling culture.
They've had a show on U.S. cable for 3 years now.
On Access?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get Access. I wish I did, but
Yeah, no, it's actually, and not to mention that, but they also have the advent of the New Japan World app. So they have their own streaming service as well. So they're doing a lot of strides to make their product more accessible to Westerners.
Don't be fooled. You know, Global Impact, GWF, whatever you want to call it, isn't the number 2 promotion in the world. Ring of Honor isn't the number 2 promotion in the world.
New Japan
the
Pro
number
Wrestling.
2 promotion in the world is New Japan Pro Wrestling.
I would actually argue that you're correct on that. Just because of that, one, of how much talent has been coming out of there, 2, how they present it in their home country, and 3, just because of how much buzz they have going right now.
It's to the point now where Paul Levesque every year, when it comes to New Japan contract negotiation time after the Tokyo Dome, tries to pinch guys.
Yeah.
That's how they got Nakamura. That's how they got the Bullet Club.
That's how they did like one felt swoop, got AJ Styles and Gallows and Anderson and Nakamura all in one felt
They
swoop.
went from the year before lowballing AJ Styles after he left TNA to the next year giving him
He's getting paid.
Exactly. Getting paid big time.
So the final of this year's G1, we end up with Kenny Omega versus Tetsuya Naito for the final. A lot of people kind of predicting that I think everybody was split on this one. I think everybody either wanted to see Kenny Omega and Okada go at it one more time at Wrestle Kingdom. I think that they did this right. I think they did a really good job of getting us to the story that we need to get, because you can pick up.
New Japan's good at surprising you,
yes,
especially with the G1. Last year, they shocked the heck out of me by having Omega win.
Yeah.
You know?
You can pick up Omega Okada whenever you want and start that program up again without any hesitation. I think a little bit of a diversion between now and then and going into like some sub-stories and going away from it a little bit, because we literally just had between January and now 3 matches with Omega and Okada. Dave Meltzer's running out of stars. He can't throw enough stars at these two.
There's Okada Omega is the new Tanahashi Okada.
Yes.
They did like a 3-year story arc with Tanahashi and Okada.
And that's fine by me.
Yeah, it was great. Where it was Okada could win the title, but he could never get that big match win over Tanahashi for it.
And that's the story that they've been doing with Omega and Okada. So we now have a wrinkle in the story now with the G1 that Omega can beat Okada if he can hit the one winged angel. Like, that is now the wrinkle in the story. So, and now we're not, they're doing a good job teasing now, because we're not going to get to see that happen again for probably some time, because now Tetsuya Naito has won the G1 this year and is going to be hopefully going into Wrestle Kingdom and challenging for the IWGP title.
It took me a while to come around to this incarnation of Tetsuya Naito, because I remember his first attempted push being disastrous.
It was, well, and that's the big thing. So if you guys remember from this past year or so with the Naito Tanahashi rivalry, with Naito absolutely demolishing the Intercontinental Championship, that stems from his first push, because essentially what had happened was he was booked in the main event match against
what happened was that he
was the heir apparent. He was the Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
Of
he won the G1 climax in,
it was like 2011. Yeah, and he was
Something
like
like that?
he was the heir apparent.
But the problem was he wasn't connecting with the fans. They were pushing him as a pure babyface, and it just wasn't working. And it was so bad that New Japan held a poll
to see what the main event for Wrestle Kingdom that year was going to be.
And it's like, should it be Nakamura versus Tanahashi, or should it be Naito versus Okada? And they went with Tanahashi, and the fans voted Tanahashi versus Nakamura.
So they put the Intercontinental Championship match as the main event at Wrestle Kingdom, which to Naito was an absolute slap on the face. So fast forward a couple years, he goes on an excursion to Mexico, aligns himself with La Sombre, for the uninitiated. That's Cien Almas in NXT currently, and joins Los Ingobernables. So now he comes back to Japan, starts a Japanese
And all of a sudden, he's got this
He's over
charisma.
He's over like Rover.
He's got personality. It's all the stuff he was missing as a bland baby face.
He's surrounded by a great cast of characters too. Like Los Ingobernables is fantastic because you have Evil, who is just like a Haas of a just monster, but he's fantastic to watch.
That's a guy who a year ago was very and now is finally.
Ingobernables has I think done numbers for all the members of the with the exception of like Bushi, who like I think is just kind of faded into the background.
He's the guy that's always going to get beat.
But like Takahashi's fantastic.
I love Hiromu Takahashi.
Because
he's got this frantic energy, like you don't know
almost like
what he's going to do,
like a ticking time bomb.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Sonata is like fantastic. I think Sonata is going to be a breakout star in the future. He has got
Sonata is a Keiji Muto disciple. He left Muto's new promotion, Wrestle One.
But he's got great charisma. He's got a good look.
When he first debuted with New Japan,
yeah,
he was having issues, but he's finally
he's hitting his stride.
He's getting it together.
And then you have
he had a decent G1. I mean, heck.
Yeah. And then you have, of course, Naito himself, who is just bringing back that attitude that he brought back after
I think
turning
the only
heel.
thing I dislike about Naito is I can't stand the Destino.
I love it.
I think
it's a little complex. It's a little like I like simple finishers. Like the Rainmaker's fantastic. The One Wing Angel is good. Destino is a bit over the top, almost like a Canadian Destroyer-esque.
It's an overdone Asai DDT. Is what it is.
Right.
I mean, and to me, that's not a finisher, but that's me. You know.
Different strokes
it pops the crowd, so maybe I'm.
So speaking of LIJ and their time in the G1, how are you with the death of Daryl? Are you finally getting to the point where you feel like you're okay, or? Because I know for me personally, it was devastating, and I still, for one, I know it's been a couple.
Well, he came
weeks.
back.
Yeah, I saw that. But that's still not stopping me from calling for the head of Bad Luck Fale on a plate.
Oh yeah.
He must be.
I want a big old battle of the hosses between Evil and Bad Luck Fale.
Oh my God! Stop. Why don't we just make it a tag? And we'll throw Ishii in there, and which Ishii has been one of my absolute favorites.
Oh, I love the Stone Pitbull.
Oh my God, he's fantastic. Once again, for the uninitiated, he's just stocky.
He's a lump of clay brought to life.
Absolutely. If you're a Batman fan, Clayface is now a professional wrestler, and he bites top ropes to avoid dragon suplexes.
If you've ever seen Lon Chaney in the original Hunchback of Notre Dame, but yeah.
So there's your final. If you guys haven't watched it yet, make sure you guys go back and check out a lot. There's so many. What I'm going to end up having to do is we're going to have to do like a top 5 matches of the G1 from this year, because there's been so many. Suzuki Okada.
The Omega Okada match was I think their best match together,
which is insane
because it only went 25.
Right. Which is insane to say, because you're comparing it to a 6-star match and a 6 and 6.25, I think is what he gave it. So is what Uncle Dave gave it.
For the record, I think the Okada Suzuki title match from the spring was better, but
I have become a very big Suzuki fan. I was once tasked with describing Minoru Suzuki to Corey, my co-host, who is completely uninitiated with Japanese professional wrestling. He has watched Omega Okada 1 and Omega Okada 2, and that is it.
Oh, wow.
So I tried to explain Minoru Suzuki, and I go, he's a grumpy granddad that kicks people in the head a lot.
Well, I love the fact that all the rumors and myths about him is like, but during setup for shows
where he's like
he gets the young guys in the ring and does nothing but stretch them.
That's fantastic. So let's switch gears a little bit. Mm-hmm. We're gonna briefly because we don't have brackets yet for the Mayon Classic. No.
And for the record, you want to go out of your way to watch the final of the G1. Yeah,
by all means, yes. When you guys are done listening to this, go fix yourself a Hot Pocket and go sit down and watch Naito versus Omega. Unreal. So we don't have brackets yet for the Mayon Classic. They're announcing the brackets, I want to say, next weekend.
Yeah. No, it starts on the 28th, right?
Okay, yeah. But they're doing like a bracketology special where they break down. I want to say they wheeled out Alundra Blaze for it. They're going to do like a bracket breakdown or something like that. So she's going to drop the WWF title in a trash can. It's going to be fantastic.
Then Akira Hokuto will come out and slap her and refuse to job for her. It'll be special.
Just like the good old days, man. So what I like about the Mae Young Classic is we have like a really good mixture of both homegrown performance center talent. We have like your help me out, Lacey Evans and your stuff like
some second generation stuff going on.
Yeah, we have Tessa
people
Blanchard
from Shimmer.
Yeah,
and someone from Japan.
We have a huge mixture of people in here.
Even Mexico.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of reminiscent of like the Cruiserweight Classic from last summer, but also a little different in the fact that you have a good mixture of like people from WWE, own homegrown people as well. Whereas the Cruiserweight Classic was almost exclusively, with the exception of like Gargano and Ciampa, who I don't even know were signed at that point formally.
No, they weren't.
Yeah, so everybody in the Cruiserweight Classic for the most part was pretty much like brought in from outside.
Yeah.
With the Tajiri maybe could be an exception, but who's just there for...
It's the problem with the Cruiserweight Classic was they brought in a lot of people, but they weren't necessarily under contract.
Right.
It wasn't until halfway through the tournament that a lot of guys officially signed.
Right.
The reason why T.J. Perkins won the whole thing was because
Ibushi didn't sign.
Ibushi didn't want to sign. He wanted to remain a free agent, and they couldn't put the title on him.
Smart man. Because he would be on 205 Live now with some really bad gimmick.
I don't see that happening because Ibushi's just got such natural charisma and is exciting to watch in the ring.
Absolutely.
That he would have overcome that. He could have made that division worthwhile.
I don't know if anybody could have made that division worthwhile. And I love Ibushi. Don't get me wrong. 205 Live has gotten completely off the rails. It's painful to watch, especially knowing from what great heights that Cruiserweight tournament started with. But anyway, so we're going to go... Do you want to go down the entire list of names?
Let's go through it. Let's go through it.
We'll pick maybe 5 or 6 of these to kind of really get into. So we'll start off this alphabetical order. We'll go with Abby Lath. For the uninitiated, she was Kimberly. On the indie scene.
I love the Princess Kimberly.
Yeah, so... we have Aisha Raymond.
Former Chikara Grand Champion, Kimberly.
Bianca Belair, which I believe she's a homegrown talent with NXT.
Yeah,
she's like an actual performance center talent.
I'm going to consider anyone a homegrown, even if they sign them from Lance Storm's dojo, because at this point, he's just a feeder system.
He's like NXT once removed.
A few of his people have ended up in other places, but the ones that he really likes, he seems to to put the recommendation in for the main roster or for NXT. So that's how they got Emma.
Yeah, absolutely. Candice LeRae. Fantastic. One half of the world's cutest tag team with Joey Ryan. It has been in absolutely devastating matches before too. Like I've seen her bleed like you wouldn't believe. Dakota Kai, one of my actual favorites in the tournament. She wrestles as Evie in the New Zealand wrestling scene and like Australian wrestling scene like that. I kind of got familiar with her in my research and I've watched footage and she's fantastic. Absolutely love her.
Well, one person.
She's adorable too.
One of the rumors about this tournament was that they were going to get Taylor Wilde to come out of retirement.
Yes, yeah.
And
I do
unfortunately,
she
injured herself while training.
Right.
Taylor Wilde, aka Chantel Taylor, who was so good that on house shows, because she used to be a WWE talent. They on house shows they put her under a mask and had her wrestle the guys. That's how good she was.
Unbelievable. So we have Jazzy Gabbert,
aka the alpha female, aka Masahiro Chono's stepdaughter.
Really? So that's who we were talking about earlier. Really? You said that earlier. I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it.
Early morning, late night.
It's cool.
Kairi Sane. Who we'll get into, I'm sure, in depth here pretty soon. We'll table that one for right now and come back to that. Kavita Devi, Kaylee Ray, Lacey Evans, Marty Bell, Mercedes Martinez.
Yes.
Mia Yim.
Miranda, the Blasian sensation.
Fantastic. Miranda Salinas. Nicole Savoy. They've changed a lot of their names too. Piper Niven, who I've become a little bit of a fan of, just in like the promo stuff that I've seen of her and the limited exposure that I've had to her. Princessa Sujit. Yep, fantastic. I knew I was going to struggle with that one a little bit. Rachel Evers, to the uninitiated, Rachel Ellering. Yeah.
Paul Ellering's daughter.
Yep. Which is curious.
And I believe Road Warrior Animal's goddaughter.
Curious that they changed her last name for the
I
tournament.
thought that was odd.
With her dad actually still being with the company.
On top of which, she's wrestled on NXT as Rachel Ellering.
Yeah.
So I
maybe it's a situation where she wants to keep the name separate for the indie scene,
I think that's what I think it's
like
so
a
the
Cody Rhodes
I think it's so
situation.
the WWE can own the name.
Right.
Because she I mean she's still won half the Shimmer Tag Champs if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So.
Reina Gonzalez, Renee Michelle.
No, that's Tully Blanchard's daughter that I'm thinking of. Tessa Blanchard. Ray Ripley, Sage Beckett, Santana Garrett, Sarah Logan, Serena Deeb. Yay, Serena Deeb!
She's fantastic. She's actually fantastic.
I'm glad she's back.
Which she looks so different now. Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
She's been away since what, 2008?
Yeah.
So I mean,
some time. Shayna Baszler.
Yes, I'm looking forward to seeing what she
Taynara Conti, Tessa Blanchard, Toni Storm, Vanessa
Bourne. Toni Storm!
Zia Lee, and Zeta.
This is going to be an interesting tournament.
Yeah. There's a couple standout names there. I think when the roster list was finalized and they put it out there, a lot of people had earwigged. Candice LeRae. Shayna Baszler's up there.
I really thought they would have asked Lufisto to participate. I'm serious.
Yeah.
I mean, she's been wrestling, almost 20 years now. But I mean,
you kind of need like that presence.
When you think of indie wrestling and female wrestler, Lufisto's like the first person that comes to mind for me.
Right.
So I don't know if they didn't offer, or if she just turned them down. But I mean, it would have been great to see her in it. Yeah.
Well, you almost kind of need that kind of like veteran in the tournament, almost like akin to like how Tajiri was last year, or like a Brian.
Well, that's why
Kendrick.
they got Mercedes Martinez.
Yeah.
Who I love, the current reigning Shimmer champion, Mercedes Martinez. She's an amazing heel.
Yeah.
God, I wish they would just sign her outright.
They've signed a few. Obviously, like Kairi Hojo signed, as evident by the name change.
Yes.
Which
we'll get into it.
We'll get into it. But they have, from reports that I've seen, we're not going to spoil anything, but you can expect the full pirate regalia. You can expect the whole.
We'll get into it.
Yeah.
Kairi Hojo, her usually when they recruit and wrestler, male or female, for any organization, they look for them to have some sort of sporting background. Mm-hmm. Her sporting background was yachting. Mm-hmm. And when she signed with Wondering Stardom, when she debuted, they said, let's play on that and make you the Pirate Princess.
And it's fantastic.
And so she comes to the ring in these great pirate hats, and sometimes there's a lucha mask attached to it. And she's got these great rubs. She's a great worker.
No hyperbole. The greatest elbow drop in the business.
Yes. Second greatest of all time, in my opinion. Because you don't beat Macho Man.
No, nobody will.
But it's an amazing elbow drop.
The elevation she gets on it. There's a T-shirt company called Private Hell that I'm a big fan of that has a T-shirt of it. Nice. And the picture, I'll show it to you. The picture is just like the elevation she gets off of it, because she's not a really big girl. Like,
no,
she's
she's tiny even for a Japanese for Joshi. So
yeah. So let's go. Give me 5 names out of the tournament. We can include Hojo, we can include LeRae, we can include Baszler, or not, that you think people should really kind of be on the watch for in this tournament.
Martinez, Kairi Sane, Shayna Baszler, because I'm convinced they're strapping a rocket to her.
I wouldn't be surprised.
They've got the UFC crossover.
Yep.
You know that since she's one of the 4 horsewomen, that Ronda Rousey's going to be there for the final. You know it.
Which is interesting because there's been rumors of Ronda Rousey kind of maybe making a little bit of a switch.
I read a recent comment from Triple H where he says he's not pushing too hard because she's not in the right headspace.
Right.
So I think it's inevitable. I think give it another year, she'll sign.
which is
in some capacity.
the legit. Like that brings a whole new level of legitimacy to that division. But Shayna Baszler's not a bad way to start that process.
No, not at all. Not at all. So Martinez, Sane, Baszler, and Kimberly.
I'll throw Dakota Kai into the conversation just because her strikes are absolutely just devastating. I'll throw Candice LeRae out there just because she's one of the ones.
Candice LeRae is fun to watch always.
She has great charisma. Like she just pops
and Santana
out.
Garrett. I thought Santana Garrett was in this.
Yes, yep. She just LeRae just to me just pops out when you put her on the
Former
television
NWA
screen.
World Women's Champion.
This is absolutely true. She just pops out, and then not to mention, but she has a familiarity with the WWE crowd already. Like even for the slightly initiated fans, like if you know who, like, not that I would use this as her only claim to fame because she has her own resume, but is obviously the wife of Johnny Gargano, which is familiar to the NXT universe, which is to her benefit because this is filming at Full Sail, so that crowd is already.
Someone I was surprised that didn't get the call up was Leva Bates, but she explained why that happened.
Yeah.
Basically, because she already wrestled in NXT as Blue Pants, and they didn't want to go. Neither of them thought it was a good idea from her being the comedy actor Blue Pants to being Leva Bates and being all serious. Leva Bates is awesome. I love Leva Bates.
Have you seen what she's been doing with Wrestle Circus?
Yeah.
So the last couple shows she's been coming out as a different member of the Wrestle Circus roster. Like she did Sami Callihan last month. She just did Shane Strickland, who's the current Wrestle Circus champion.
I mean, and that's always been her thing. Cosplay is her thing. I mean, I remember her and Allison Danger as Regeneration X, where they come out as the Doctor.
Stop. That's insane. She's fantastic. There was a rumor that she had a bit of heat with the company from her first run from Brooklyn. That may have also kind of played into it. I don't know whether or not that's actually got any substance to it.
She's a sweetheart.
Yeah, but I could also see it being for the reason that you had mentioned with her, they not wanting to have that familiarity in the tournament because that would almost kind of detract from, it would be, oh my God, it's Blue Pants versus.
I look at it this way. I would rather if she's going to work for the company, that they sign her and they re-debut her on the main roster.
Yeah. She's almost custom made for the main roster too. She fits the main roster. You put her in the mix on Raw, she would fit in.
She can
perfectly. Go. So we haven't formally announced any brackets or anything like that. There are a couple favorites in the tournament. Obviously, Kairi Sane, Kairi Hojo is one of the biggest signings for a women's wrestler that they've had in many, many years. So one would assume that she would probably have the proverbial rocket strapped to her back as well.
Mm-hmm. They had signed Kairi Hojo, and they were also going after.
Oh, help me out!
The ace of Wandering Stardom, Io Shirai.
Yeah, but
Io had issues with her neck, and so her contract, her deal was
kind of void, essentially.
Void isn't the right word. It was rescinded. I'll say.
Okay.
She just recently returned to action in Stardom.
I saw her re-debut. Actually, she came out with the hoodie on and stuff like that.
And just this weekend, she and her fellow Queen's Quest stablemates won the Wonder Ring of Stardom trios titles.
Unbelievable.
So, it's not to say that they won't offer the contract again. I think they just want to make sure that she's healthy.
Right.
This kind of thing has happened before. If you recall, in 2007, the WWE signed Claudio Castagnoli.
Yep.
And had him report for his physical and report to OVW, and then they had to rescind the contract because and it happened to Nigel McGuinness too.
Yep.
They signed him, and then they had him do a physical, and his shoulder was screwed to
Do you know
hell.
how bad it hurts to have Nigel McGuinness employed by the WWE, but not actually able to wrestle?
Ugh.
To have Nigel McGuinness and Daniel Bryan under the same company umbrella and not be able to do.
On the one hand,
Unbelievable.
yeah, but towards the end of his time in Ring of Honor, I got real sick of Nigel McGuinness.
A little bit, yeah.
No offense, Nigel. I still think you're great. I remember the first time I saw you in Detroit with Ring of Honor. That was a fun match.
Who was it with?
Colt.
Fantastic. So that's really it. We just kind of wanted to go over the competitors for the Mae Young Classic. Wanted to get them all out there and get some feelings about who some people to watch for you.
I think you're either going to come out of this as a fan of Kairi Sane or you're not. I think you will.
Yeah.
She's really fun. The only thing that both fans and the WWE have to be concerned with is she has a history of concussions.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're being careful with that. And
Yeah.
she's had problems with her shoulder in the past, too. I think you're going to like Mercedes Martinez. She's a magnificent heel. Magnificent.
And the tournament's going to really be like the time for them to, any of these people that they're actually signing, and they did it last year with the CWC, you really got some, and even with the UK tournament, you got some really good character development in these tournaments, and they do a fantastic job with it. Of like, so like last year for the CWC, like Brian Kendrick separated himself out from the pack as like the villain.
I didn't see that one coming. That blew my mind. It was just like, really, Kendrick, really? Yeah.
But the way they told the story of him, like, I'll do anything to get back to where I need to be.
And then it's where Tozawa.
And then same thing with Pete Dunne. So you're saying like Martinez almost probably has like the ability to kind of separate herself out and be like the villain of the tournament.
I hope that's the man. Like I said, I already have in my mind how I would book her if I had her. You know, but I'm not holding the book. So.
So we'll find out soon. They're going to announce the brackets here very shortly. I am personally thrilled for the Mae Young Classic. I think it's going to be a fantastic tournament.
I think it's going to be better than the Cruiserweight Classic. So.
I think it has a very good potential to be, and I loved the Cruiserweight Classic. So
I liked certain things in the Cruiserweight Classic.
I love it. But I'm also like WCW Cruiserweight division was like, we talked about this a little bit earlier. That was my wheelhouse. Like that was like bring on the luchadors, bring on, give me all the La Parka you have.
Oh gosh, yes.
Give me all of the El Dandy you have. Give me Volanos 4 and 5.
That reminds me that AAA is having their big they're having Triple Mania soon.
Are they really?
And the main event for that is Dr. Wagner Jr., who I love.
Fantastic. He's great.
Versus Psycho Clown in a mask match. And the Psycho Circus doesn't lose that often, so I don't know what's going to happen there. I hate to think that Dr. Wagner Jr. is losing his mask. But then again, I didn't think Blue Panther would lose his mask to one of the Vianos, and look what happened there.
And here we are. All right, so we're going to get out of here. We wanted to thank you guys for tuning in to us today.
Oh, and Blue Panther lost his hair last week, too.
Did he really?
Oh, yeah, because he had that match with that dude that does the pro-Trump gimmick. They had a hair match, and you would think in Mexico, where people don't like Trump, they'd have Blue Panther win. No.
So next week we are going to have our SummerSlam spectacular. We're all really excited for SummerSlam. The card's shaping up fairly nicely.
I think it's going to be a really good show.
I'm pretty excited. The Fatal 4-Way main event is going to be...
I think Nakamura is going to drag a good match out, Jinder Mahal.
I think if there was one man who can do it, it's AJ Styles. If there's another man that can do it, it's Shinsuke Nakamura. So,
because it sure as hell ain't Randy Orton.
So next week, make sure you guys are tuning in. We have our SummerSlam Spectacular. We will be back here. Between
there's going to be jugglers and
the
fireworks,
fire
everything.
breathers. We're also still working tirelessly. We have the footage from NOW Uprising 12 coming out here pretty shortly.
Have you guys watched Glow yet?
I have watched a few episodes. I haven't watched all
Oh,
of
you
it.
need to watch the whole thing, bro.
I need to get time.
You need to see Awesome Kong be the best actress on the whole show.
She's fantastic. From the little bit that I've seen, she's absolutely fantastic. New episode of Chick Flick Picks is coming out here in the next week or so, so we have that to look forward to. And yeah, so James,
that's the show.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Definitely, brother.
I appreciate it, dude. You are a absolute just vessel of knowledge. Like I want to just pick your brain some more.
I got a lot of useless information.
Well, until next week, this has been Audio Suplex Live, and we will see you guys very soon.
If you want the complete history of the WWF title till about like 1997, it's in my head.
Have a good week, guys.
Hey, this is Joe, producer of Audio Suplex Live. We'd like to give a shout out to the band Wax for intro and outro music. Make sure you check them out at the link below.
You've been listening to the Nerd Complex Podcast Network.